Hello and welcome to the Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast. I'm Yadi Caro. In each episode, we delve into a so called soft skill, which helps you advance in your career, get that project done, and overall help us become better people. Soft skills are what make hard skills work. Today, we're going to talk about humor. Humor is not just about being funny, it is a skill which can be cultivated. According to the Psychology Today magazine, humor is the capacity to express or perceive what's funny, is both a source of entertainment and a means of coping with difficult or awkward situations and stressful events. Can we learn humor as a skill? Well, of course. Today's guest, Kupersmith, teaches the techniques he learned as improv artist and stand-up comedian to people in the management field. He also preaches about the importance of cultivating humor every day. Today, we learn specific techniques. So let's listen.
I love the name of the podcast because I always say the soft skills are the hard skills to learn, right? So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah, I mean, you
So,
can go to training and learn like all the finer points of the technical things, but it's how you interact with people. How do you collaborate, teamwork, communication. Those are hard, and it's a constant. You're always learning.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's difficult to master. Things that are difficult to
Oh,
master.
absolutely. Yeah.
And definitely, so I want to welcome you because the I wanted to choose the topic of humor, and when I was thinking of that, you came to mind because with
Oh, thank
based
you.
on
Yeah.
our previous interview through the blog, the Communicate blog, it was you provided a lot of great insights that were very revealing, and I I'm sure we missed a lot of stuff, so I want to make
Oh,
sure we
yeah.
incorporated. So I want to read your bio first, just to make sure, and correct me if I'm wrong in anything here.
Okay.
You say in your slogan that making people awesome, you want to make people awesome, basically,
Yeah.
is your main objective. You have served as the lead business analyst and project manager on projects in energy, television, in sports management, marketing. You're a keynote speaker and applied improvisational coach.
Yeah.
Also, you were the president of a training organization, which is
Correct.
very impressive as well. And you were also an comedic, an improv um, artist
You're right. Correct.
in comedy primarily, and you've taken those skills and moved them into the business world, which we'll talk about.
Right.
And you're a co-author of the Business Analysis for Dummies as well. And yeah, you enjoy. I learn while laughing is what I read in one of the bios.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So why? Well, let's start from the beginning. What came first in terms of comedy or the business analyst part?
Yeah, I think comedy came first for me. That was the early. So if you don't mind, I'll step like way back to when I was a kid, because that's, I think, when humor or comedy started entering in my life. I grew up an average height kid, average smarts, average athletic ability. I'm the middle child. So I always say like my middle name is average, right? I mean, I am like right in the middle. So yeah, my name shouldn't have been Coop. It should be average guy. So much of, I think those are things that, people think of separating them apart. And especially when you're growing up as a kid and middle school, high school, you're trying to, find your way. And, throughout there, probably 10, 11, 12, I realized I could make people laugh. So so I just kind of, that was my thing, right? I would always just try to make people laugh, and I love to make people laugh and feel good. I mean, laughter is good. So I kind of stuck with humor.
And did you pursue first of all the route of comedy and decided to become a comedic actor? Is that the first thing you pursue?
No, 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 I went after the furthest thing probably from that. So I uh going into college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my dad was like, hey, why don't you, you're really good in math. Why don't you become an accountant? Everybody needs a good accountant. You'll have good benefits. So I was like, okay, why not? So I was going through that in college, didn't really love it, but didn't know what else to do. So I kept kind of going in that realm. And then I think it was my senior year, I had a chance to take an elective. So I found this improv class and I was like, oh, I'll take it. It should be fun, easy class to get an A in. And I took it and I loved improv. But I didn't, even after college, I went to become an accountant. But it was kind of a few years in, I was like, I have this creative side. I need to do something different. And I actually tried stand-up comedy first and kind of did terrible. That was not
Oh,
my
really?
thing. Stand-up was not my thing. Well, I have like my memory, like I have a hard time remembering things in general, but like remembering specific lines and, you know, so how to tell a joke and kind of build up to it was really hard for me. So, because I couldn't kind of get the cadence down and I couldn't remember things and I would get nervous. So it just wasn't my thing. But then I started auditioning for some improv troupes, and that's when I got selected and went through some training and then, performed for about 10 years
Oh,
in
wow.
Atlanta. And
So you,
in
mhm.
that time is when I also became a business analyst. So
Oh.
the improv gig was not paying me very well. So
All right. So you were a performer for 10 years while doing business analysis. But so when you think
right.
business analysis, you don't really associate that with a lot of comedy and or even well some creativity, I guess. So how do you decide or how do you found a way to kind of mix both?
Yeah, so I think there's two things. Like one is like the improv side is less about the comedy than what I'll talk about with humor related in the workplace. Like for improv, like some of the keys, and we talked about in the article, some of the keys is how you listen. Like in improv, there's no script. So if you're not paying attention, if you're not fully focused on the other actors, things could easily go awry because you're not listening to them, you're not playing off of them, you're just coming up with something. And when you're on stage in front of an audience, it needs to feel kind of like you did have lines. So you have that focus you have to have as an improv actor, and the listening you have to have as an improv actor is the same thing with business analysis, right? We're in these meetings all the time. We're interacting with people all the time. And you've probably had experiences with people that were half listening. I mean, especially now, I know, we're in the age of COVID and everybody's online. I mean, I'm on meetings all the time and telling people like, hey guys, we got to stop multitasking, right? Because you ask somebody a
Mhm.
question, they ask you to repeat it or they answer it and they have no idea, they're answering something totally different that they heard 20 minutes ago. So it's frustrating, right? And especially if you're on a one-on-one conversation, um, you want people to focus and stay focused. So that's one thing. The other thing is kind of having a positive attitude. The mother of all rules in improv is yes and, right? You never deny, because you have to take what somebody is saying and then add on to it. You never, like if you came to me and said, hey Coop, let's talk about humor in this podcast, I'm like, nah, I don't feel like it.
Mhm.
Like how would that
Yeah.
go over? It would be kind of like
Well, not so
okay,
well.
well,
It's
right.
done.
Right, yeah, okay, I
Okay.
guess I'll talk to you soon. Right. Call me back when you want to talk about it. Right, so it would be over. So whatever you say, I have to kind of take and build on it. And it's the same thing in the workplace. You have to kind of, like, especially when we brainstorm a lot, we ideate a lot, solution a lot of different things. So you have to be open rather than denying people all the time. It's kind of going with what they're saying and try to come up with a good idea. So, and even if I kept denying you, you dear, that's a terrible idea. No, I don't want to do that. No, that's terrible.
Mhm.
Eventually, you're just going to be like, you know what? I don't feel
Mhm.
like dealing with Coop anymore. I'm going to go in another meeting and work with someone else. So you have to have that positive attitude. So those are a couple of things with improv, but the humor side,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people struggle how to use humor in the workplace. And the thought is like, well, we're serious at work, and in our personal time, that's when we get to loosen up and
Yes.
joke around, right? But I think we're at work so much, and my tagline that you shared earlier about, you know, laughter while learning. There's no
Hmm.
reason to have laughter while working too, right? I mean, we should. Laughter is good, having fun is good, and you can also get things done. So we need to be serious, but I don't think we need to take things that seriously and not have fun while we do it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because I like those techniques that you described in terms of like in the brainstorming sessions. I've seen many that people just are afraid to share their ideas because somebody's going to roll their eyes and say, this sounds terrible, and I don't
right,
feel like
exactly.
sharing anymore. So I like that kind of keep building up as you did with your improvisational skills. So keep building up on that. I really like that. And
Right,
keeping positive, especially now. I really like that too because it's so difficult right now to keep positive, but that's what
correct.
keeps us going basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, one question though, in terms of humor, because what if some of us that think we're not that funny, how do we cultivate humor like in the workplace? Any tips for people that like me that don't consider themselves very funny?
yeah, sure. So I think, and this is like a big misnomer. I think people think, oh, humor, you have to be a comedian, kind of, and that's the humor in the workplace is not being a comedian, right? It's
Hmm.
not about putting the focus on you, and being, hey, here comes the funny guy. Can't wait to hear what jokes he's gonna tell today. That's really not it. I mean, there
Okay.
might be a place for that if you're having coffee with, and you're on a break and you're just a good storyteller and a funny person, then yeah, that's fine. But in the workplace, in meetings and the day-to-day interactions, it's really not about that. It's more about how do you keep other people loose and productive. So, you were
Mhm.
just, sharing back the things in improv about being positive. It's the same thing with humor. You want things to be productive. So if you think of meetings that you're in where you're with really intense people, one,
Mhm.
you get nervous and you're like, oh, should I say that, should I not say that? And certain people get really quiet, and they're not kind of being themselves and opening up and sharing ideas and being as productive as we can. So it's about loosening up people in a meeting. So it's loosening up you know, those really tense people, but actually
Mhm.
keeping everybody loose and positive, and having an open environment, a productive environment. So the the tips, I guess I would say, and it revolves into improv with listening. So like you want to listen for chances to get humor out.
Mhm.
So let me maybe I'll tell a story
Yeah.
to kind of highlight this point about how to use humor. So I was in a meeting with a group of people. It was me and three other people, and we were brainstorming ideas of, part of my job as a keynote speaker. So the four of us were talking about, hey, why don't we have this like consortium of keynote speakers, and maybe, we can work around the world, and we would be everywhere and we can benefit from each other, blah blah blah. So one person said at one point, like, well, yeah, well, Joe can be in Vancouver, Tim can be in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and so, and I'm trying not to share real names, but and
Mhm.
Sally uh can be in Australia, and Coop can be in Topeka, Kansas. And everybody kind of giggled a little, and I was like, hey, why do I have to be in Topeka,
Mhm.
Kansas? Right? Why can't I
Yeah,
be in
for
the
the
cool
exotics.
places? Right? Yeah, right. Nothing against Topeka, but
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
but Topeka and Buenos Aires, I don't know. I would,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
um so at that point when I said that and I heard everybody chuckle, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
that I got to remember that, because I'm going to try to bring that up again if it kind of calls for it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So there was a moment in the meeting where it got a cut. Two of the other people were like kind of at each other, disagreeing, and it wasn't going smooth. So I just jumped in. I said, hey guys, I know you guys are kind of getting upset with each other, but at least you're not going to Topeka. And it like, everybody
Nice.
started laughing, right? And it was like, it
Yeah.
kind of, removed the tension from the meeting and allowed us to get back into. So that's when I say humor, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're listening for. Like, so
Yeah.
when you see something that people chuckle about, um, and you don't know when that's really going to come up, right? I had no idea when I said, "Hey, why do I go to Topeka?" I was really saying that like
Mm-hmm.
legitimately, like I wasn't looking for a joke, but people
But
laughed,
and
and I was like,
mhm.
okay. So I remembered that, and then kind of brought it back. So there's a rule in comedy, like there's the rule of threes. So the way I use it is a little different, but I kind of, so the thing is, like, you want to recall things, like bring things back
Yeah.
that were funny at one time, but don't overuse it, right? Don't, like, every other sentence be like, "Hey, you're not going to Topeka," right? You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to. It's like kind
Overkill,
of use it. Yeah.
overkill. Yeah. So I like that concept also of the loosening up, that it's not just as about telling jokes, it's more about making sure people are comfortable, pretty much, right? So it's
Right. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yes.
now, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no. So I just want to, like, those jolts of humor, like, just help, like, it stops where everybody is at the moment, right? And
Hmm.
being either angry at each other or whatever it is. And
Now, do you see a particular difference now that we're having so many Zoom meetings or web conferences, or versus when we're in the workplace next to, in the water cooler or anything, just trying to make conversations? Any advice, or I guess any significant difference that you have noticed, if any, when it comes to trying to establish that sort of rapport with your team and your coworkers?
yeah, I mean, it is more difficult. I think you have to be more deliberate. So just rapport overall, I think you have to take time, like outside of normal meetings, like you were saying, when you're all in an office together, you're kind of walking to meetings together, and that's when you can be building rapport. So I actually use, I reach out to people outside of meetings to have conversations. I also, um, before meetings, I allow, like, as people are joining, I'll start small talk, right? Just to get people talking, and then a couple of minutes in, be like, okay, I think we got everybody here. Let's go forward. So I think it's really important. And there are two colleagues right now that I'm working with. We used to meet every day for 15 minutes, but now we're meeting once a week. But it was like, our meeting actually ended up being 30 minutes, because the first 10 minutes we would just be catching up and talking about some of the challenges we're all having, and
Mm-hmm.
how we're dealing with the world today. And I think at one point, I was like, oh, you know what? We're taking up so much time in our meeting to just talk about this. We should probably get started. And they're like, you know what? This is actually great. I need this time, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think it's recognizing that people are stressed,
Mm-hmm.
and they need this connection, right? Because we're not getting, some people aren't even with the family, right? Some people are single, or their
Mm-hmm.
kids have grown up, and it might be them and their partner, you know, or they have a large family and they have a lot of kids. So there's stress related to that as well, and
Yeah.
trying to homeschool kids, all the things that are going
Oh,
on
yeah.
today. So I think we just have to recognize that and be okay with, not be so strict about, agendas and meeting, and we got to start on time, we got to end on time. And I think that might be more of a US thing than
Mm-hmm.
in a
Yeah.
lot of other places, but I think we have to let go of some of that.
Yeah, certainly, certainly, especially, yeah, in these challenging times right now, that you're looking for connection with people. So
Right.
now, how about in a regular workplace, or even right now? When are there instances that maybe humor or trying to be funny could go a little bit too far? Are there any precautions you recommend along those lines?
Yeah, and I will say, and because my family sometimes gets annoyed with me, because I am, like, I always have these little quips, or when I hear somebody say something, I do have, like, a, not a joke, but I have, like, trying to be humorous, and it's not
Hmm.
always funny. So one thing I will say with humor, you need to try it. You might not always hit the mark,
Hmm.
but at the time you could be thinking, oh, I think this is gonna loosen up the crowd and it might be funny, and nobody says anything. It's like, okay. um, Either you could just move on, or you could be like, oh, okay, I tried to loosen you guys up with that joke, but obviously it's too tense, and that might even
Mm-hmm.
loosen people up. But I have gone too far. So my thing is, like, everything anybody says, I personally, I'm thinking of how could that be funny, or what can I tie it to? That's just the way I think. I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect everybody to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you do overuse it, you have to, the first thing to do is apologize, right? And I recently had an experience where there was a QA analyst that I love. Like, he's awesome. He's like one of the best QA team members I've ever had. But I would give him a hard time. Like, I would always joke, and in meetings, and everybody would be laughing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
something would come up, and I'm like, oh, don't give that to him, because he's going to find a bug, and it's going to take us longer to finish this project, and everybody would laugh and blah, blah, blah. Hey, so there was like over and over in every meeting. And I thought, for time being, I thought like, oh yeah, okay, it's good. Everybody's having fun. We're enjoying this. He was even laughing a little. But then one day he sent me a note. He just sent me a chat over Teams, like, hey, why do you always make fun of me? And I was like, whoa, okay, like, obviously
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I hit the wrong chord with him. So I instantly kind of apologized, said I will
Mm-hmm.
curtail that. I'll stop it. But it also explained that, there wasn't an intention. I wasn't making fun of him. I was trying
Mm-hmm.
to keep things light. And I actually, by me making fun of him, was showing that I loved him, right? I mean, that,
Mm-hmm.
like, people that
Yeah.
I don't think are as good on the team, I'm not going to joke about, because, so I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I could joke about him, and he was fine. And we,
It's good.
it didn't become an issue. But yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you overstepped, and in this case, so at this point we were all online, so I couldn't see him. I probably would have noticed even before he said something
Mm-hmm.
that he wasn't enjoying it if we were all in the room together.
Oh, okay. The
Because you could
challenge.
see,
Yeah.
so luckily he did say something to me, and we were able to resolve it.
Oh, that's good. That's great that it worked out. So yeah, because it could go too far. Sometimes I guess if they reading
Right.
the person that they are in it, the joke, I guess. So yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're laughing with you, not at you. It's
Exactly.
like,
What are some of your projects that are going on right now in general and during these times?
yeah. So I partnered with a company, Velociteach, and I'm trying to write some on-demand courses for them.
Awesome. Okay. And
Yeah.
what will be the topics about?
Well, I wrote one about decision making. This next one is about kind of, and it's based on the team I'm working with now. It's kind of like, how do you, and they're primarily a project management company. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you be a delivery leader um, in in the age of where everybody's kind of remote, right? I mean, you typically think of, for the most part, even though we do live in a remote world, but now it's like everybody is remote, so it's a little harder. So giving tips on how to kind of work in that world, and how do you kind of keep agile. Agile talks about being co-located, small
Mm-hmm.
teams. I have a very large team, and we're spread out all over the place. So how do you still incorporate agile principles
Mm-hmm.
um, when you're not living in an environment that is suited for, or typically suited for agile?
Okay.
And I do
And
the other thing. Sorry, the other thing is like coaching around. I don't know if you're familiar with DISC. So it's one of the personality behavior profiles, kind of like Myers-Briggs and
okay.
some of those others.
I
So
should look it
it's
up.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, DISC. So
Okay.
um, DISC, and incorporated with that is Patrick Lencioni's
Mhm.
5 dysfunctions of a team. So
Yeah.
kind of have a workshop around that, and I've worked with a few clients to help them understand their, so it all goes to this podcast, right? It's like, if you know other people's behaviors and how they want to be interacted with, you're going to be
Mhm.
more successful. um,
Yeah. Certainly, because soft skills are very important.
yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, all these things that you're describing are
Right.
definitely something to look forward to. And yeah, and I'm sure with your particular style, they will be quite entertaining, learning while laughing, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. That's my goal. Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and that goes back to how I use humor. Again, it's not
Yeah.
about me being a stand-up comedian and putting the attention on me, but it's
Hmm.
how do you incorporate humor? How do you say something that
Yeah.
people can take funny? How do you add laughter to even to your cadence and how you talk, right? To make people feel comfortable. And
Yeah.
that I think is the keys. Like how do you use humor to make people feel comfortable and be able to be productive and stay focused? So actually I have another story
Hmm.
around that comfortableness because and this is another way that I think to use humor. I try to use humor. It doesn't always stick, but I was at a presentation and the the presenter's PowerPoint went down or something happened with the projector. So,
Hmm.
and I could see like she's getting like real uncomfortable, like she's counting on having the PowerPoint up behind her. And um, being a presenter, I was like, oh man, like I know how she's feeling. So I jumped up and I was in the AV club as a kid. So I kind of know my way
Your
around
expertise.
technology, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let me jump up and help her. So I was like, well, you keep going. I'll try to get this fixed.
Hmm.
So, um, so she kind of kept going. I got the PowerPoint up. I fixed the issue. Um, and I, at that moment, I felt like she was losing the crowd. Like she was doing a great job in the beginning, had us all kind of brought in. But when she got nervous, she was kind of losing us. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, how do I make her laugh? I was really looking, how do I make her laugh? But if I made the
Okay.
audience laugh, it's kind of like a break. Like it changes it allows everything to take a different path, right? So
Yeah.
so she's losing the crowd, everybody's uncomfortable, she's uncomfortable. So I just said, and what I just said to you is what I said. I was like, oh well, thank God I was the geek in the AV club in high school. I was just, was able to fix it. So
Yeah.
everybody's like, ah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and and then that kind of broke, and she was able to move on and kind of with
Yeah.
the
Yeah. You
presentation.
were
So
the right person at the right time. So
yeah, so it's thinking like that. I guess it's somewhat hard for me to explain, but that's how I'm always thinking about
yeah.
using humor to keep things light, keep things
Mm-hmm.
fun. I mean, I'm in so many meetings where like if I'm not leading it, I have to be careful if I'm not leading it to
Mm-hmm.
try to, change the attitude of the meeting, but I try to do that as much as possible. It's like, when you're in those meetings and it's very tense and someone is like driving, let's get done. It's like,
Yeah.
like everybody, it's too tense for people. We don't need to be that tense. So I try to interject little funny things here and there.
Yeah, that's very important, and I appreciate your time on kind of, because it boils down to making people feel comfortable and kind of,
Right.
yeah, because as you mentioned earlier, we spend so much time at work and in meetings, virtual right now, and everything else.
Right.
So you can still do great or even better work, I guess, with when you're comfortable in
Right. Yeah.
environments. Yeah. So where can people find you for any? How do people connect with you? How can we connect with you?
Yeah. The best, my site is www.kupetalks.com, and Kupe is Kupe.
Yes.
So that's where you can see kind of what I'm up to. Twitter, I'm on @Kupe. Actually, the best way is probably LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn under
Yeah.
Kupersmith, right? So that's probably the best place.
All right. I appreciate your time, Coop, and this has been great. And I learned a lot as always when I
Awesome,
hear you
awesome.
in here or in podcasts or other podcasts as well. It's great. So I appreciate your time and looking forward to your next to your stuff coming up, to your
All right.
learning training sessions. Oh,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
all right. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like what you learned today, make sure others learn as well by sharing this episode or leaving your 5-star review in your podcast application. Subscribe and check out our website, hardcoresoftsskillspodcast.com. See you next time.